Hey, aren't you tired of playing ANDARIEL Rogue as everyone? Here comes my Wolverine Flurry Rogue. It is able to farm pretty easily Infernal Hordes level 8 as you can see on my screen, as well as do pits above 130 and I will guess probably around 140 as a cap. So in this video I will tell you everything you need to know about the build, how it works, what you need to have in order to make it work, and what are the pros and cons of the build. So without any further ado, let's get into it. So the first thing you have to realize about the build is that all the damage comes exclusively from Flurry. So everything you have in the build, the paragon, the skill tree, your equipment, everything is designed to buff as much as possible the damage of Flurry. The second focal point about the build is that Flurry requires energy in order to be cast, so you need to have several different ways in order to make sure that your energy level is always high enough in order to make sure you are able to cast Flurry. So now that you understand the basics of the build, let's deep dive into what are the pros and cons. So first, it is extremely fun to play. As you can see on my screen, you're extremely mobile, you jump from a target to another, you deal damage in an area around you, you delete packs of mobs, and in fact, it is extremely good at speed farming. Either a pit level 100, as you can see on my screen, you can simply jump from the pack to another and delete everything every time you arrive in a new pack. Same for all level 8, you can basically delete everything, even edits, they just melt. The third pro is that unlike all the current meta builds that are basically using a bow or a crossbow, here you have a true melee rogue. You're directly in the face of the target you're hitting, and this is something I really like and I was looking for. And finally, even if in the video I'm showing right now I have a very optimized setup, until very recently I had a very cheap setup and it works very well. You do not need any uber unique, you do not need really anything in order to make the build work. It is extremely cheap in order to be efficient. Even if, of course, the more stuff you have, the better it is. So about the cons of the build, so there are really two main cons to the build. The first one being that even if the build is extremely good at dealing with packs of mob, it is not as good at dealing with single targets, for example, boss. It is not bad by any mean, but it is just average at dealing with single targets like bosses. And this can be problematic if you want to push pits really high because, as you may know, in pits, the real problem when you get to very high levels like 145 or 150 is that the bosses are simply extremely healthy and tanky, and that you need good single target damage in order to deal with them. And the second con to the build is related to the first one, is that even if this build is extremely fun to play, very good at speed farming, scratches your melee rogue fantasy, and is pretty cheap to build, it doesn't have a ceiling that is as high as the ANDARIEL rogues, either Penshot, Barrage, or Puncture rogues with ANDARIEL. It can still do very good, but it will not do as well if you are aiming at pushing pits. Right now, as you can see on my screen, I have done 130 pretty easily with like 6 minutes left, I think. And I would say the build can probably go to 140, but I do not see it going way higher than that. So for your damage rotation, you want to use a puncture early in the fight in order to have a boost to your cutthroat damage for 8 seconds. So every 8 seconds you want to use a puncture, and it's not very hard to do. It doesn't cost anything. You also want as many as possible to be your target into your caltrops, because it directly boosts the damage through caltrops, but also through all your paragon nodes, and everything that says if your target is trapped, you have damage boosts. It also triggers your fluidity glyphs, which gives you more damage and energy regeneration for 6 seconds. So ideally, you want to use it at the beginning. You can also use your death trap pretty early, because it gives you for 10 seconds a damage boost, and also you recuperate it pretty quickly
by using Flurry and spending energy, you can see that the cooldown is going down pretty fast. I already have it back, so you can use it very easily and very quickly. Do not try to optimize it. It's more damage boost than anything else. And outside of that, you also want to use your grenade because it's 25% more damage and it gives you a big chance to freeze the enemy. Your Shadow Step is more a tool in order to be unstoppable when you are in trouble. And outside of that, you just want to flurry, to be honest. So Puncture, Caltrops, Death Trap, you can use a potion to get unstoppable damage boosts, and then you just spam Flurry. And you can put a grenade in between all of these. You can put a little puncture every 8 or 10 seconds and use your death trap in order to get the boost, and this is it. Okay, so for everyone interested into me deep diving into the build, going through each piece of equipment and explaining the philosophy and why it's here, deep diving into the skill tree, deep diving into the paragon, you can stay with me. For those of you who are not interested into all the details, you will simply find in the video description the planner with my character, the skill tree, the paragon and everything. And if you need any more explanation, you can simply watch the what's coming next in the video. But if you are not interested in it, thank you for watching the video and see you later. Okay, so now let's deep dive a bit into the build piece by piece of equipment and then speak about the skill tree and the paragon. So for the equipment, first you will have on your helm a Crown of Legion. It is an extremely important piece of your stuff because the passive that it gets is tons of damage. Each time you use a skill with a resource cost, gain 15% damage, and it increases the cost of the skill you are using. And it can stack up to 5 times. So this is tons of damage. If I'm correct, it scales off to 75% of damage, but it increases the cost of your flurry. And if you are beginning the build, I would not advise you to take the Crown of Legion because you really need, in order to make it work, a lot of energy reduction cost or energy regeneration in order to be able to sustain the downside of the Crown of Legion. But once you have a setup that works, the upside of the damage is really too good to pass. And if you want to have a GA on it, max life, lucky hits, or cooldown are all fine, even though I prefer probably max life or maybe cooldown. And it is also very important that you have the 15% more damage because they stack up to 5 times. So each percent that you lose is being lost 5 times. And if you do not have Crown of Legion, you can have something like this that I had in the beginning. So just a simple helm with like a dexterity. You can put max life, armor, lucky hits, whatever you want. While you are transitioning to your Crown of Legion. Second, for your chest, right now I have the Tyrell's Might. Same, if you do not have Tyrell, it is not necessary to make the build work. You can just have a random chest with like Dark Shroud levels on it, or you can even have this legendary unique chest which gives you Dark Shroud and also a little bonus when you evade. So you can perfectly have this. If you do not have Tyrell, it is not necessary to make the build work. But if you do have Tyrell, it is really great. It gives you a lot of tankiness. The third piece of stuff are the gloves. So for the gloves, in my first setup, I tried with the Fist of Fate, which give a lot of lucky hits, but it wasn't as good. So I went back to Flurry on the gloves. Here it is important to have lucky hit chance because in order for your build to work, you need lucky hit chance, both to proc like things like freeze, to proc things that heal you in your skill tree, also to proc innovation that gives you energy back. So it is very important to have lucky hits on your gloves and on several other pieces because otherwise the build will not work.
Here you are already looking at having as many masterworks as possible into Flurry, because Flurry is basically tons of damage for you, and also the Crown of Legion scales off the damage of your base attack, and Flurry increasing the level of Flurry increase the base damage. For the Tempers, one freeze and one damage per Dark Shroud is really, as in many builds, what you are looking for. And the last one, the resource cost reduction, I would advise you to have one either on the gloves or on the ring, and I would advise you to have it as a GA, Greater Affix, sorry, because it makes things easier regarding the energy management. There are very many different ways to manage your energy in this build. You can do it through resource cost reduction. You can do it through lucky hits that gives you a chance to restore energy. You can do it through levels of innervation. You can do it through energy per second on your stuff, as I have on my boots. You have many different ways of doing it, but the way I prefer it is to have it either on your ring or on your gloves as a GA, because it makes it easy to switch from your pit pushing build to your horde pushing build, because there is slight tweak between the both of them. And finally, something I didn't speak about regarding the gloves is the aspect. So here we have deal 25% increased damage while you have a barrier. It is extremely good on this build because you generate a lot of barrier thanks to second wind, and you have a lot of points into second wind, so basically you always have a barrier outside of moments where you take a big burst of damage, but it generates extremely fast back because you use a lot of energy, and second wind generates then a big barrier for you. So fourth, you have the legs, so the pants. Here you need pants with at least armor. You do not need them to be GA, but you need armor on your legs. Could be also in your boots, but why not put them on the legs? And then dexterity, max life are fine. For the tempers, flurry size is a must, because your base flurry is not big enough. And if you could, you would go for 2 flurry size on your stuff, but right now I am settling on just 1 because it doesn't change much on boss fights, and this is where the bit struggles a bit. So just 1 flurry size temper is enough in my mind. The second one is a second wind. As I was saying, it is very important to have second wind because it gives you barrier, and barrier gives you damage thanks to the aspect that you have on your gloves, but it also gives you tankiness. And as you are a melee rogue, you are taking hits, and so it is important to be at least a bit tanky. Regarding the aspect, you have lucky hits. Critical strikes have up to 60% chance to grant a free Dark Shroud Shadow. This one is basically on all the rogue builds. It gives you Dark Shroud without having to have it on your spell bar. And it is the source of most of your tankiness, but also of your damage, because on your stuff you have a lot of damage per Dark Shroud now, so it is extremely important to be able to generate them as fast as possible. And they come with lucky hits, so this is where I was saying that it is important to have a bit of lucky on your stuff, because you have a lot of things that rely on lucky hits. Now we can move on to the boots. So for the boots, I prefer the affix attacks reduce evade cooldown by 1.5 seconds. You can go for free evade charge as well, but I prefer this one because you attack so fast and so much that you basically always have your evade available. Then I have dexterity, energy per second, and movement speed. Movement speed is really cool when you are doing hordes. When you are doing pit level, it's not as important. You could go for something more tanky, for example, max life. And here the very important point is the energy per second. You need it to be a greater affix, and you need to have at least 2 masterworks into it for my build. I'm not saying that you cannot make it work energy-wise if you do not have it as a GA, or if you do not have 2 masterworks into it, but having this makes things a lot easier and makes you not have to have more innervation levels on your amulet, for example, and it just makes life easy. I would suggest have energy per second as a GA. and as well 2 masterworks into it. And finally for the tempers, freeze as well, and movement speed or movement speed per dark rod are all good. And for the aspects here, you can just pick this one, which is both survivability and damage, because it makes your grenade have a chance to froze based on your critical strike chance, and you have very high critical strike chance. And then when your target is frozen or stunned, they take 25% more damage from critical strike. So it is quite good because you have a lot. Moving on to the crossbow or bow, they are basically both playable, even though I think probably the bow is slightly better. Here, it doesn't really matter if you have dexterity or max life as greater affixes. Both are good, but they are not necessary. But what is necessary is really the greater affix resource cost reduction. For the same reason as you having it on the gloves or on your ring, it is in order to manage the costs and the downside of the Crown of Lucian, which makes Flurry very expensive in terms of energy. So having it on your bow is necessary as a greater affix or crossbow. And having it at 30% is really great, because if you want to switch from your Horde pushing build, which is using improved flurry, which is what is making you dash from a target whenever one, and what makes you very mobile in Hordes, and you want to go to your pit pushing version, which is using advanced flurry, where you are losing some mobility, but it is not that important because the mobs and the bosses are way more tankier, so you are way less mobile. But when you go for advanced flurry, it reduces the cost of your flurry by 3 times 10%, which is 30%, which is exactly what I have on your crossbow. And once you do this switch, as you have 30% resource cost reduction when you go for advanced flurry, you do not need anymore the 30% that you have on your bow or crossbow, so you can simply swap for the exact same weapon, but instead of having resource cost reduction, you can go for critical strike damage, which is more damage. And it makes going from one build to another very easy, because you have the exact same paragon, exact same stuff, at the exception to the two-handed weapon, but you can just swap from one to another, one having resource cost reduction and one having critical strike damage. And then in your skill tree, you just have 1 point to swap, and then you are good to go for either Hordes or pit pushing. But to be honest, you can do both with both builds. It doesn't really matter. It's just that Advanced Flurry gives you as well 3 times 10% more damage on your Flurry. And when you are starting to hit a wall in a pit, you are going for as much damage as possible. And here the 3 times 10% are pretty big. So when you are going to high pit levels, you have to play Advanced Flurry. And so you can afford to change your two-handed weapon for something with even more damage, because the resource cost reduction is integrated into Advanced Flurry. And finally, regarding the Masterworks and the Tempers, for the Tempers, you want Caltrops duration, because it lets your Caltrops stay longer, and Caltrops being there longer helps you on all the things that require your target to be trapped, and also Caltrops directly increase your damage. And damage per Dark Shroud is like basically what you want on every piece of equipment that is offensive. And having 2 Masterworks or 3 Masterworks into it is exactly what you want. And finally, for the aspects, you go for Flurry, deals 80% more damage and has 20% chance to stun. Then we can move on to the amulets. So for the amulets, here you have a lot of different choices. Personally, I really like GA Dexterity. And for this reason, I try to put as many dexterity gems on my stuff. Now I have 3. You can probably go to 5 if you are doing Hordes, and probably as well to 5 when you are doing pits. But this season, when you go to the boss in high pits levels, they are starting to hit very hard, they are stacking debuff on you. So that's why I went back to 2 red gems on my chest, but you can probably do with 5 green ones, but it's more risky. Outside of dexterity, you have a lot of different options. Personally, I think Weapon Mastery is really great. You have it on other pieces of your stuff, and you have it in your skill tree. So having it also on your amulet boosts your damage quite a while. You also have Exploit as an option. You can put Malice, you can put Alchemical Advantage, even though I don't think it is as good as on Barrage or Penshot or other ANDARIEL builds. And you can also go for Unstable. All of those are great options. I just think that Dexterity, Weapon Mastery, Frigid Finesse, Exploit, Malice and Unstable are probably the best ones. And I will always have Dexterity because on top of giving you damage, it also gives you a bit of survivability by providing dodge, because dexterity gives you both skill damage and dodge. And you being a close combat target melee rogue, having a bit of dodge is always great. Outside of that, if we take a look at the Masterworks and Tempers, for the Masterworks, I was targeting at everything into Weapon Mastery, but to be honest, if you have some into Exploit or Dexterity, it's perfectly fine, or even if it's Frigid Finesse or anything like this, it's fine. The Tempers, I have, of course, Damage per Dark Shroud. This is on every offensive piece. And for the last one, here I have maximum life while Dark Shroud is active, but you could go here for a second Flurry size temper. It is perfectly fine. You could also go for other stuff like dodge or whatever, but yeah, you have different choices. Here I have maximum life while Dark Shroud is active. And finally, regarding the aspects, I have the one that basically boosts my damage from Cutthroat skills, and I am using Flurry, that is a Cutthroat skill, to 68%, and gives me unstoppable, which is pretty good. After that, we can move on to the first ring. So Starless is not a must, but it's a big boost once you have it. Everything on it, attack speed, critical strike chance, lucky hits, and core skills is all things that you need. And of course, the aspect that reduces the cost of resource of your skills, as well as boosting your damage, is absolutely everything that you want. So if you don't have it, it's fine. You can play just a random ring and put the aspect that does the same effect without the damage boost, but there is an effect that gives you resource when you heal, and Flurry heals a lot, and you have other means of healing in your build. So you can just use that while you are waiting to get the Starless. But to be honest, Starless is really the first Uber unique that you want, because it boosts your damage by 50%, and this is a big boost compared to the simple ring that you will have that would do the same job regarding your energy management, but would not give you the big 50% boost of damage. And here, regarding your masterwork, you want everything in your core skill damage. After that, for your second ring, it doesn't matter. Yeah, this is something I forgot to speak about, but it doesn't matter what resistance you have once you have Tyrael, because Tyrael basically gives you 87% to all your resistance to all elements. So after that, and it is even boosted by your Starless ring, so it doesn't matter what resistance you have on your rings, because you are already capped, and you can in fact put armor gems on your jewelry in order to boost your armor, because you do not need the resistances. So for the second ring, as I was saying, you can go for a lot of different things. I will go for attack speed GA if you can, because for this build you are looking to reach 20 frames per second as for your attack speed. I will put below in the description a link to attack speed calculator, so you can try to find out what attack speed you need in order to reach the 20 frames per second. Here, for my build, I have it exactly. This is why I have For example, one masterwork in attack speed here, 2 here, and I think I don't have any other. And because I don't have attack speed on my gloves, it makes it mandatory to have a lot of masterworks on attack speed and GAs on attack speed in order to reach the 20 frames per second attack speed. Outside of that, maximum life is fine. It's not necessarily the best thing you want, but it's fine to have it. You can go as well for crit chance, crit damage, lucky hit. All of those are fine and help you because you deal a lot of your damage through direct damage and crit. For the masterworks and tempers, here the temper is very important. You want innervation maxed because without innervation you will not be able to sustain the energy cost of the build. So you really want that, and after that it's damage per dark shroud that is like any other piece. And for the masterwork, as I was saying, just look at what you need in order to reach the 20 frames per second, the 20 frames attack speed in your build, and masterwork according to it. For the aspects, this one is very important because it transforms your flurry into something that attacks all your enemies in a circle around you, and this is scaled by your temper's flurry size. Even if it's not visually scaled, it is in fact scaled. You do not see it, but it does work. And it also boosts the damage of flurry. So all of this is very important. And finally, for your two last weapons, so for the first one, very classic, you want dexterity, max life, and critical strike damage. But then for the temper and the masterwork, the very, very important one is the lucky hit chance to deal poison damage. And this is important because in your skill tree, you are playing with alchemical advantage, which relies on you having to deal poison damage. And outside of this, you are not dealing any poison damage. So you need to have this in order to make the build work as good as it does. And after that, it's just Dark Shroud, and you want as many masterworks of Dark Shroud as possible. For the aspects, I went for the one which gives you a chance to stun enemy hitting you from a distance. This is not very important. You are more looking at the second part of the aspect, which is you deal 30% increased damage to stun or knock down enemies. And for your information, when a boss is staggered, they are considered to be affected by all the different types of CC. So they are considered stun, knockdown, and everything. So they take, in fact, 30% more damage. And finally, the last piece of equipment we are talking about is the second weapon, which is Ashera's Kanjar. I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, but basically it is a very, very important in your build because it gives you everything you want. So max life is always good, critical strike chance, perfect, lucky hit, exactly what you want, and ranks to weapon mastery. And this boosts your damage quite a bit because if you take a look at your skill tree, you have a lot of boost to weapon mastery, and so as you have a dagger, it increases the damage to healthy and injured enemies by 98%, and your other weapon is a sword, so you also get 32% increased damage. So the weapon mastery is extremely important, and you want as many masterworks into it as possible. And the aspect it gives you, you want it maxed because it helps you reach your attack speed cap to reach the 20 frames attack speed. So you want it at 30%. So this is it for that. And just the last thing, you can see on my weapons, I have the ultimate damage gems. You might be wondering why is that? It's because this season in your paragon, you have a legendary node that boosts, I think it's this one, yeah, no witness. Your ultimate skill gain an additional 10% damage from your damage with ultimate bonus and grants this bonus to all skills for 10 seconds when cast. So the part on the ultimate damage doesn't really matter, but it gives this damage to all other skills for 10 seconds, and this one is very important. And you can see that you can go up to 35 to 45% more damage for 10 seconds, and this is why we are putting ultimate gems on our weapons, and we are going for some nodes on the paragon that gives ultimate damage. Because you are trying to reach those 45%, because each percent is multiplicative and it is a pretty big damage boost. So this is it for the stuff. Lastly, if we move on to the skill tree and the paragon, I will be pretty short here. So first, the skill tree. I have to point into puncture in order to be able to move forward. You can also go for Art Seeker, which is on paper slightly better, but it makes you hit with your bow or crossbow, while puncture hits with the same weapon as Flurry, and from my point of view, it's slightly better. Also, puncture can give you a bit of energy and helps you with that, but you can do both, doesn't really matter. I personally prefer puncture. After that, you have 2 points here. You go, of course, for as many points as possible into Flurry, Enhance Flurry, and then, as I was saying, if you are doing Horde, I would say go for Improve Flurry, because it helps you dashing everywhere, because it makes simply casting Flurry dash to the target, so it's a lot of mobility as well as healing power. But if you are going for very high pit pushing, then I would switch to Advanced Flurry, which gives you less mobility but helps you with energy management, but also very importantly with your damage, because Flurry is then boosted by up to 30%. And then if you do switch that, as I was saying in the beginning, you can simply swap your weapon from the one which was cost reduction to one which is critical strike damage. Outside of that, you have nothing to change when you go from one bit to another. After that, you can also put 3 points into Study, which makes you more tanky, and 1 point into Siphoning Strikes, which simply gives you a chance to heal yourself when you are hitting stuff and having lucky hit critical strikes against close targets. So this is just a source of healing that you need, especially when you are not playing Improved Flurry, because you are losing the heal part here, and lots of your heal coming from Siphoning Strikes. You can even go for maybe a second point if you're struggling. After that, we have as many points as possible in Weapon Mastery. As I was saying, this is a big source of your damage boost, and it helps you a lot. You have 1 point into Shadow Step, which is both agility skill, so it helps you proc your glyph, requiring you to use an agility skill in order to gain a damage boost, and it also gives you an unstoppable, so do not press this too often, because you need unstoppable in order to be able to get out of tricky situations. You can put a point as well, it's not necessary, but it's always great to have a point here, because basically for bosses, it makes you dash on the targets, and then they are both vulnerable and daze for sure, so they take maximum damage when you dash on them. But this point is not necessary. You can remove it if you want a point to put somewhere else. You have, after that, Caltrops, of course. Same, it's an agility skill, which provides a damage boost for 6 seconds when you use it with Fluidity Glyph, but it's also a trap, and you have a real need to have your targets trap in this build, because you have a lot of benefits from having them trap regarding your paragon, your skills, and everything. So you gain a lot of damage boost while your targets are traps, and this is also one of the reasons why you put Caltrops duration on your weapon, because it lets Caltrops be there for longer, and so you have more time where you benefit from the damage boost. You also choose to enhance your Caltrops to have more damage, and of course, Discipline Caltrops gives you more critical strikes chance, which is always good with Flurry. 3 points into Unstable Elixir, this is absolutely amazing, everyone is playing it, you cannot avoid it. Same for Trick Attack, gives you big damage boosts, you can pick it, you are physical damage, you are crit damage, you are everything that you need is Trick Attacks. After that, we move on to Dark Shroud. Everyone is playing Dark Shroud. Here you are going for more critical strike chance, because you really benefit of having as much as possible. You are trying to reach 100%. Smoke Grenade, which helps you crowd control your target, as well as providing a 25% increased damage for 5 seconds, and this is very, very big. And this season you have to know that it works on bosses, from what I have heard, so it is a big change from last season where it wasn't working on bosses. So this is a free 25% damage increase boost for just 1 point, so you cannot spit on that. After that, 3 points in exploits, 3 points on malice, this is just 3 damage. Here you have, of course, 3 points in frigid finesse because it's just 3 damage as well. You have several ways to froze your enemies with your lucky hit on your stuff. You also have your aspect that makes your grenade a chance to freeze everyone. And for the bosses, as I was saying in previously in the video, once they are staggered, they are considered every CC in the game, so they are frozen, so they are taking 30% more damage. And then you have 1 point in Deadly Venom. This really doesn't matter, but it helps you reach the alchemical advantage, and you can put 3 points into it. And so this is very important because it gives you up to 15% attack speed and lucky hit, and they are both things that you want to reach your 20 frames attack speed, and also lucky hit chance helps a lot this build. So this is really, really great, and this is the reason why we have on our weapon the temper chance to deal poison damage, because it lets us proc the alchemical advantage. Finally, we have as many points as possible into innovation, and innovation is a big source of energy management. In my build, I have only 3 points here and 3 points on my stuff, on my ring actually, but you can go to 9 if you need to by putting instead of maximum life while Dark Shroud, you can put innovation instead of this, and so this will help you deal with the energy management, and it's really, really great. It works with lucky hit, and this is the reason why we need a lot of lucky hit, and it helps you sustain the big energy consumption that you have with Flurry. After that, very important as well, second wind. This one grants you a big barrier once you spend 100 energy and you are spamming Flurry. So you are spending a lot of energy, so you always have this active, and the barrier is absolutely huge. This is the reason why we are playing on the gloves the aspect that deals more damage when we are a barrier, because basically we always have the barrier thanks to second wind. And you want as many points as possible into it, and I even have it on my legs as a tempering and masterwork, +5 to second wind, because it's very, very big. This is really something you want. And finally, we have the Death Trap and the Prime Death Trap. Prime Death Traps helps you get everyone in the same place. It's always great, and the Death Trap is very important because, as I was saying previously, this season everyone is playing the damage boost from the legendary node in your paragon, which is no witness. I think, where is it? I think it's this one. Your ultimate skill gain additional damage, and most importantly gives you more damage to all your skills, and this is why we are playing the Death Trap, because it gives for 10 seconds up to 39% more damage to everything. And this is it for the skill tree. Of course, yeah, the last thing is that we are playing for the key passive Momentum. Momentum is both damage reduction, maximum energy, energy regeneration, movement speed, and increased damage. So it's everything that you want. It stacks up to 10 times every time you are using a cutthroat skill. And when you use a non-cutthroat skills, for example, let's say I use a smoke grenade, you just lose 1 stack. So you go from, for example, 10, you go back to 9, and after that you use Flurry as well, and you go back to 10. So it's very easy to have 10 stacks of momentum, and you are basically always 30% less damage, 30% maximum energy, etc., etc. So this is it for the skill tree. Lastly, if we take a look at the specialization, we are playing preparation. The reason is simple, is because we are spending a lot of energy in this build, and spending energy reduce the cooldown of our ultimate by 5 seconds, and also it gives us damage reduction, And as we are spending a lot of energy with Flurry, we are reducing by a lot the cooldown of our ultimate, which is Death Trap. So we are getting a lot of tankiness through this, but mainly we are able to spam Death Trap a lot more. And as I was saying previously, in your Paragon, you have the Legendary Node that gives you for 10 seconds a lot of damage after using an ultimate. So with Preparation, you are almost able to always have the buff active on yourself, and it is very, very, very great. The Preparation here, I think, is a must. Finally, regarding the Paragon, I will not deep dive into it. If you want to deep dive yourself, you can just check the planner. But basically, we are playing combat that helps us with critical strike damage, and also helps us with energy cost management. After that, we are, of course, going for no witness for all the reasons that I described. We have Pride in order to deal more damage to healthy and injured enemies. Here we are playing Chip in order to simply deal more damage, and we are going for the Tricks of the Trade legendary node that is actually very important and is the reason why we have Puncture on our skill bar, because this says when you use a marksman skill or a cutthroat skill, it gives 25% damage to the opposite skill. So when you use a marksman skill, you have 25% more damage on all your cutthroat skills for 8 seconds. So every 8 seconds, you have to press Puncture because it boosts your damage of Flurry for 8 seconds by 25%. So this is why we have to Puncture here. There are other ways to proc this, but I prefer to do it myself. So basically, when I'm dealing damage, I am attacking with Flurry, and every 8 seconds, I am pressing on Puncture in order to have the buff. After that, we have here Exploit Weakness that just gives us more damage when we are hitting vulnerable stuff. Here we have Chip Shot that gives us more damage when we have crowd control enemies around us, and it also works on bosses when they are staggered. And same control for the glyph gives us more damage, and also more damage on staggers, frozen, just damage as always. Here, pretty interestingly, we have Fluidity that gives us damage, but also energy regeneration after using an agility skill for 6 seconds. And so this is why it is important to have Shadow Step and Caltrops that both proc this. So ideally, you want to, every 6 seconds, use an agility skill to always have this active. And also Fluidity grants 150% bonus to all magic nodes within range. And so we have core damage magic nodes around here. So it boosts quite a bit the damage from Flurry. So this is great. And finally, we go for the Deadly Ambush legendary node, which gives us 23% increased critical strike damage to enemies affected by your trap. Apparently this is bugged in a good way, and by that I mean it buffs not only critical strike damage, it buffs all damages. So all the different builds are going for this because it's just bugged. And for the glyph we have Ambush, that basically just gives us more damage to trapped enemies, and this is again a reason why we have Caltrop duration, but also Death Trap. And so this is it for the build. You have everything you need. Do not hesitate to ask me questions directly on Discord or in the comments on YouTube. I will put in the description a link to the planner in order for you if you want to check everything. The planner will be my character, so it's not 100% fully optimized, but you can take it as an example. And you will find there the skill tree and the paragon. I hope you have fun, and see you next time.